Okay, I'm going to show you how to make a bead today. The first thing I do is light my torch. There's my propane, and now I'm going to add to that some oxygen. And that gets my flame very, very hot. I'm going to pick up a rod of transparent amethyst, and you can't stick this glass right into the hottest part of the flame or it will shatter and shards of glass will go flying all over the studio, and we don't want that to happen. So we have to warm it up in the very top of the flame. Just kind of wave it back and forth in and out of the flame until it warms up, kind of gets used to all that heat. And then we can slowly introduce it to the what's called the sweet spot, which is the ideal place to melt glass in the flame. I'm noticing that I'm getting a nice gather on the end of my rod. So I'm going to pick up my mandrel. This is the what we wrap our glass around to make the bead. So I'm just going to warm that up, and then I'm going to start wrapping this molten glass. And when it is this molten, the glass flows very freely. And all you have to do is keep that rod, the tip of that rod, in the flame with the mandrel being just underneath the flame, and you can just keep winding glass until you have as much as you want. Now, I'm winding a disc right now, and then when I get enough on there, I'm just going to round it out. When you put glass on a mandrel like this, and then you start winding, you start rotating it in the flame, it wants to be round. So you'll see how this rounds out. Now, generally, I would switch hands and use my dominant hand to melt this in, but I think that's going to block your view, so I'll just keep using my left hand here. And you can see that it's now collapsing in on itself, trying to form a round bead. We're getting pretty close now, so I'm going to take it out of the flame, and I'm going to start to let it droop a little bit. I'm going to pick up my mashers here, and I'm going to press the glass like so. And this is the shape that I wanted to achieve, so that's what we're going to be putting a flower on. Now you'll see that the bead's going to start to turn dark. When it's molten, it's going to be orange, but it's starting to come back to the original color now. And I'm going to turn my flame down a bit, and I'm going to start laying down my flowers, my flower petals, I should say. This is a very thin and short piece of it's called Evil Purple, actually, is the name of this color of glass, and I won't tell you why it's evil, but maybe I'll make another video one day and explain that. But I'm going to use this for the center of my flower, so I'm going to put just a little dot in the very center of this bead, being careful not to get my fingers too close to the flame. Okay, so got to melt that in just a little bit to make sure it adheres to the base. And I'm going to pick up this little stringer, which is getting very, very short, but I think I can still use it. Well, actually, here's a longer one. Let me do this. Okay, so here's a white stringer that I'm going to start applying my petals. I'll use this to apply 5 petals to this bead, and the center one that I put down first will kind of help me to know where to place the petals. The torch that I have is called a minor bitch burner, and it's fueled by propane and oxygen. I love my torch. Okay, so I have my 5 petals laid down, and I'm going to kind of look at them and see if I may need to put a little bit more glass on a couple, and it looks like I do, so give it just a little bit more because we want our petals to be nice and even. Now I'm going to kind of melt those in a little bit, show you what we have so far. Okay, that's what what it looks like with all the petals laid down. Now I'm going to go in and bring each dot to the molten stage, and then I'm going to take a dental tool and I'm going to be pressing in each dot to make a petal. I usually start with the top dot, and I'll show you what that looks like. You can see a difference. Okay, so now I'm going to continue all the way around until I have all of my petals pressed in. And I'm trying to get them as close to that center dot as possible, even trying to tuck them in underneath just a little bit to give it a more finished look. So far, so good. Got one more to go. And you can always go back in and repress any dot if you get it, if it heats up a little bit too much while you're pressing another, melting another dot in. So I'm going to have to do that with the very first one I did. Okay, so this is what the final bead's going to look like. Now what I have to do is, because I actually used this cold tool on the molten glass, and I also laid it on my marber to press in a petal or two, I got some rings on the back of my glass from it touching that cold surface. So I'm going to flame polish that out a little bit. Then I'm going to put it in the kiln. It'll sit in there for several hours. And the reason we do that is because when you melt glass, bring it to its molten state, the molecules in the glass get confused and they don't know quite how to settle down. So we have to make them happy again by giving them a nice long hot soak. And I anneal my beads at 955 degrees so that when they come out of the kiln, they're durable and should last a lifetime. So that's how we make a bead.